I don't know about you all, but I'd say his love language is definitely physical touch. Because after they let go of their little promise, they both be in each other's personal space a lot more often. Arnold gives off the Black Cat energy so much, and even though it's a fifth volume, I still feel happy when he shows his bare minimum emotions to Rishi, or when he tries something different just for her sake. Like in the previous volume, he takes her to the beach, and in this one, they are attending an opera in the theater. Arnold asks for Rishi's hand, and when she held his, she sensed the chatter of the lobby shift. Her ears picked up all sort of gasps and murmurs. I mean, I suppose the people would be a little surprised because Arnold is an introvert, an extreme type of introvert. So the nobles looked at Rishi all dressed up for the theater and then looked at him beside her, wearing formal attires with black gloves. He appeared as if he'd rather be anywhere but here. For the royalty and nobility, the theater was a special venue. But from what Rishi heard, Arnold had never so much as shown his face at a party before, including events at the Imperial Palace. The nobles must have been quite shocked to see the anti-social prince escorting a lady to the theater. And the funny thing was that she just mentioned the theater, whispering a wish to see the show, and she hadn't even intended to be heard by anyone. But Arnold lifted his head from the documents at his desk as the words left her lips and said, "Very well, give me some time." Rishi had merely blinked, thinking that he wouldn't do such a thing. Yet just a few days later, they had secured seats for the opera. I understand how he works so quickly now. Once he makes a decision, he acts on it without a moment's delay. This was her outcome of the situation. My outcome was that he has fallen for her and began to enjoy the time that he spends with her. One peek at Arnold's profile reveals his immense displeasure. He must have found all the attention irritating. When he noticed Rishi's gaze, however, his severe expression suddenly softened. He remained silent and reached out with his free hand and touched Rishi's earring. She obviously jumped at that action, so he explained that her hairs were getting caught in the thin chain, while he gently ran a finger over the earrings before touching a lock of her hairs behind her ear. The surrounding nobles reacted as if they'd witnessed something that they shouldn't have, and the buzz in the lobby grew louder. It all really felt embarrassing to Rishi. "Thank you, Your Highness," she said. Her cheeks were flushed, but Arnold was as unflappable as ever. The two of them climbed the staircase to the upper level, hand in hand, when someone called out to them. First new character we have is Rudolph Gerd Guthail, a newly hired Imperial Guard who will also become Prince Arnold's direct subordinate in the future. She remembered that he had 5 retainers who answered directly to him on the battlefield. They carried out his orders and delivered him whatever victories he requested in the war. It was thanks to the support of these 5 knights that Arnold was able to conquer the world in such a short time. And one of them was this guy. He was such a great swordsman, but he had little to no skills in raising up women, which was fine because the lady that he liked was enough of a rizzler. The lady in question here is Sylvia. She was the opera singer that was performing at that time, but had suddenly fallen ill on the stage. Rishi had to help her breathe properly as she had some apothecary skills from her previous life, and Arnold had her carried to the doctor. The one who was carrying her though was Guthail, making that scene their first encounter. And you'd be surprised to know that it was love at first sight from her side. Oh, and the theater was also the place where Rishi met Prince Dietrich again. His character was literally just like how I imagined it. But before that, I'd like to point out something. It might be my overthinking, but we know how Arnold knows that Rishi doesn't like it when he's too close to her, as she feels embarrassed and turns into a tomato, right? How she tells him that him being so close to her seems like a punishment, because she can't handle their closeness well. If you didn't know about this, read the bonus chapter from volume 4. So they were sitting together and talking about the show when he asked if she had watched it before, and she paused for a moment. Then she told him that yes, she had watched the show, but with her previous fiancé, Prince Dietrich. To which Arnold felt silent, but she continued, stating just how much she liked Sylvia's voice, while the prince said nothing. Now, as a reader, I could feel that Arnold was not really enjoying this, but Rishi was lost in her thoughts, thinking if he would enjoy the opera as she flipped back to the previous pages in the program. He doesn't seem very interested, but he did said that it was his first time attending it. Then suddenly something occurred to Rishi. She asked if he had any questions about it, but stopped mid-sentence as a heavy weight settled on her, making her gasp, and she blinked in surprise. Arnold had laid his head on Rishi's shoulder. He had reclined against the back seat and was looking down at his own program, snuggled against Rishi. His elbow rested on the cushion between them, and he had put most of his weight on it, so he wasn't terribly heavy, but she could definitely feel a weight, his weight, on her shoulders. "What is it?" Arnold's tone was same as ever. her. He spoke as if he'd always said this way, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Yet there was also something else in his voice. Her heart was pounding so hard, and she gazed down at him, asking if he was sleepy. His eyes flickered toward her. It was the first time seeing him from this angle. Her heart throbbed as she stared down into his beautiful sea blue eyes. He denied that he was not sleepy. Then what was it, she thought. Paying no mind to Rishi's reaction, Arnold said to her, "You'll answer my questions, won't you?" Of course, but why in this position? She thought, but she didn't have the courage to say that out loud. She was certain that Arnold had noticed both her surprise and her red cheeks. In fact, he looked like the cat that got the cream as he observed her from his current position. "What is an opera anyways?" he asked, and his breath tickled her ear. She replied, and he grunted, shifted, and then peeled off one of his black gloves. His large bare hand slid to Rishi's lap and flipped the pages of the program, just resting there. He proceeded to ask her questions normally, including the "what kind of stories have you seen before?" And again, Rishi, being the perfect female lead that she is, explained wholeheartedly about one of the shows that she watched. It was about a wedding in a world with magic, a political marriage to be exact, and the story told of a vow that they would share in a form of a kiss. She trailed off, staring into Arnold's blue eyes. Unable to tear her gaze away from his, Rishi thought, wait, marriage rights? In less than a month, Rishi would be married to Arnold. She knew that, of course, and she was very busy getting ready for that event each day. At that moment, however, Rishi became newly aware of one fact, enhancing a kiss in a wedding ceremony. Thinking about that, she froze in place, and Arnold's gaze turned dubious. In the palace chapel, they will exchange vows and then they would kiss. Rishi blinked, registering that fact. A vow in a form of a kiss between Prince Arnold and me in front of all the guests attending our wedding. She was completely lost in her thoughts when he called and stared her face. Then out of nowhere, she remembers a memory of her and Prince Arnold, and her already hot face burned even hotter. She shoved the moment to the back of her mind like always, but it was already too late. Arnold already got worried. "Don't tell me you have a fever," he said, reaching out to touch her forehead. But Rishi grabbed his hand and brought it down to her lap. She squeezed it between her hands. "I'm fine, nothing's wrong," she said, but he was frowning. He was a swordman, so he'd probably hated having his hands bounded. Rishi was so sorry to make him uncomfortable, but she really didn't want him to touch her, because she was sure that she would cry if she thought about that kiss again when they were this close. Then a bell rang, signaling the start of the performance, and Rishi did her best to act like nothing had happened. I might be wrong about him doing this to get back at her, but I'm 100% sure that he would never ever get jealous of anyone. We have seen that previously with Raoul already, and now it was the same with Prince Dietrich, who we first see arguing with Prince Arnold's guard in the theater, to which Rishi thought that in all her previous lives, she have never once encountered Prince Dietrich after they broke off their engagement, up until now, and it was safe to say that he was just like before. There were all sorts of things that she would like to work out at the moment, but first things first. Rishi let go of her forehead and peeked over at Arnold. He was seated next to her on the couch, frowning just a little bit. That much was fine. What concerned Rishi was the placement of his right hand. "Why is Prince Arnold's hand around my waist?" she thought. Meanwhile, his other elbow laid on the armrest, his hand pillowed his cheek, and his legs were crossed as he looked at Dietrich. Rishi recalled the fit Dietrich had thrown a few moments earlier. Upon recognizing Dietrich, Arnold acted first. He had grasped Rishi's hand and immediately tried to exit the theater. But Dietrich, like an insistent toddler, had demanded that they acknowledge his presence. Thus, Rishi kept Arnold from leaving, and they borrowed the room. Honestly, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Prince Arnold is not really fond of people like Prince Dietrich, which is reasonable, and from Rishi's observation at balls and other social gatherings, Arnold's patience for loud people was as thin as a thread. But that doesn't really explain why he's holding her so close though. Maybe because he was trying to prove a point? But being joined at the hip with Arnold in front of others made Rishi restless. She said that she would talk to Prince Dietrich on her own as she watched him uncomfortable to her core, and added a murmur, "If you would rather not be present for this, you could wait in another room." The baby prince interrupted. They both ignored him, and Arnold's eyes fell on Rishi, and he simply declares, "I'm not leaving, I'm staying here with you." Honestly, those almost sounded like the words of a faithful lover, and Rishi's heart banged against her ribcage. She lowered her gaze, deeply embarrassed. That was when Dietrich finally noticed how they were positioned. "What's with the way you're sitting? You're not even married yet, and you're holding her waist?" He turned a brilliant shade of scarlet as he gaped at Arnold, who shot back a single word reply, making Dietrich sling off his chair. But there was an ice-cold bloodlet sadness in Arnold's voice that chilled even Rishi's spine. I feel like I have to apologize for this, Rishi said to Arnold. Why should you have to apologize? The only thing soft and sweet about Arnold in that moment were the words that he uttered to Rishi. Giving Dietrich another icy glare, Arnold unhurriedly opened his mouth and asked, So? Dietrich recoiled from his short question, so he says, I'm talking to Rishi right now, not you. I've only allowed you to be here because Rishi desired to speak to you. Don't forget that you're not in position to casually meet the crown princess of this country. Arnold said calmly, Rishi isn't your princess yet. It's far too early to treat her like she belongs to you. I thought that they will have a full-blown argument until Arnold shut down Dietrich, saying, It seems you have a fundamental misunderstanding of the role of a husband. Rishi will be my wife, but she will not be my property. The only person whom she belongs to is herself. The person I'm not allowing to act freely here is you. Do you understand that? With a voice so low as it was a fog curling against the ground, Arnold added, You will answer Rishi's first question. What do you think you're doing in this country? Rishi could feel that he was getting really angry now. Rishi thought that speaking with Dietrich really must have put a strain on his mental health. So she got to the point of moving things along. The truth was that the fiancé Prince Dietrich left Rishi for was also getting interested in education. I always had my doubts. I couldn't imagine you'd withstand such an education, even if it was coming from your beloved Lady Mary. Rishi pinned Dietrich with her narrow eyes. Tell me, Prince Dietrich, you fled from Hermity, didn't you? She asked, and he panicked, standing up with the force of his shout. But just one glare from Arnold forced him back down on his seat, and at the same time, Arnold pulled Rishi even closer, and her heart almost leaped out of her chest. To even suggest that I would flee? Why, it's outrageous. He tried to make a point. But forget that. Why does it feel like Prince Arnold was trying to protect Rishi? I'm not sure, because the baby prince was harmless, but seeing Arnold being this protective was so refreshing. Back on the couch, Dietrich frantically searched for the right words. I suppose you couldn't handle the schooling etiquette lessons. Feeling as if there was nowhere else to go in Hermity, you came to Galkin. Am I correct? Rishi hits him right on the spot. The room fell silent. Arnold said nothing, but at this point he was eyeing Dietrich as though the man was a trash lying by the road. Rishi sighed, trying to get him to understand one last time, but he cuts her off, shouting, Who do you think I am? Then he starts his rant about how he never wanted to be the crown prince, how he is actually very smart but the people around him don't appreciate him, and how he always felt jealous of Rishi. She was more diplomatic when they were engaged, but right now, Rishi wanted to get this over with for the sake of Arnold's mental health. But after a while, when he started crying, she didn't really know what to do. She'd never once seen Dietrich cry. Maybe I went too far, she thought and panicked, glancing over at Arnold, because for the last few months, she'd been relying on him whenever she wasn't sure of what to do. Very well, leave this to me, he said, picking up on just how stumped Rishi was. Is Prince Arnold really going to comfort Prince Dietrich? Rishi thought. I suppose it's possible. He's really a very kind person at heart. She was just thinking about that when Arnold turned to Dietrich and began, no matter your reasons or circumstances, which really didn't sound like the start of a very comforting sentence. It doesn't really excuse annulling your engagement with Rishi and trying to banish her from her homeland when she was at no fault whatsoever. He finished. Rishi called him in surprise, and Dietrich crumbled into a sobbing mess. Still, Arnold struck mercilessly. Do you even understand that stripping a noble woman of her support system and banishing her to a place where she has no connection may as well be a death sentence? He said and continued, to claim that you might intend otherwise goes beyond mere foolishness. Rishi tried to stop him by whispering into his ears, Why are you rubbing salt on his wounds? To which Arnold replied, You mean you weren't implying you didn't mind if I struck the final blow? Arnold asked like he was clueless. Of course I wasn't. You knew exactly what I was trying to say. I had no reason to show this man sympathy. In fact, you're far too kind with him. This is the man who broke off his engagement to you. Well, my engagement to Prince Dietrich held no value to me, she said, and Arnold asked in return, Are you sure you're not twisting the knife more than I am? They continued their whispered conversation, completely ignoring Prince Dietrich at this point. Eventually, he started murmuring to himself as well. I wasn't born the crown prince because I wanted to be. Suddenly, Arnold rounded him on that. Do you think Rishi was practically born your fiancée because she wanted to be? He asked, recrossing his leg, observing Dietrich with pure disgust. I have no choice but to ask. Do you think the woman you envy so much has expended no efforts in her life up till now? Dietrich averted his eyes because he knew that Arnold was telling the truth. Resting his chin in his hand, Arnold told him, It's been a mere 2 months since Rishi came to Galkin. Yet if I bring her to a party, she knows the faces of every person in the attendance, and she can even remember their preferred conversation topics. Rishi's eyes widened in surprise. surprise. Then he went on about how much effort Rishi put into her life in general. His blue-eyed gaze fell on Rishi. At that point, even I didn't know that he was watching Rishi so closely. She felt her cheeks heating up from the warmth of Arnold's gaze. You give me far too much credit, Your Highness. I've done nothing deserving of such high praise, she says. You should take more pride in the things that you've built for yourself. Arnold replied, his large hand cupping her face, his thumb stroking her cheek. Make him understand all the effort you've put in to serve as a crown princess. Warmth blossomed in her chest all the same, and Arnold's hand slowly drew away from her cheek, and she covered her face, hiding the flush spreading across it. Dietrich's reaction, meanwhile, was to double over and start groaning. Now is the time to tell you the true reason I came to Galkan before your 16th birthday. Rishi stared at him in daze. Like Hermity, Galkan forbids anyone under 16 to marry. While you remain 15, you cannot officially be considered as Galkan's crown princess to be. Dietrich's passionate declaration only confused Rishi further. What, you don't understand? I'm telling you I'm here to save you before you can be legally wed. He was not trying to play the hero, probably for his new fiance's sake. The Rishi was completely lost to whatever he was saying. She asked, save me? From what exactly? To which he cried, pointing dramatically at her, from the engagement that you obviously do not desire. At that moment, Rishi was struck speechless. Really, I can't believe my father, offering up my precious childhood friend to a man known for his cruelty and brutality, but I will not yield, not even before a nation as great as Galkan. I'm here to save you while there is still time. He went on, rejoice, Rishi, we'll celebrate your birthday back in Hermity. Dietrich then turned a teary glare on Arnold. Prince Arnold Hain, I do not fear you. Well, in truth, I fear you a little, or a little more than a little, but this too is a trial I must overcome, for I am the future king, and I'm full of kingly qualities. To be fair, he was being awfully rude to Arnold, but the man in question seemed as if he could not care less. In his mind, Dietrich was probably not even worth humoring a response. Without a reaction to Dietrich's declaration, Arnold turned to Rishi. You must be satisfied by now, he said. We are leaving. Knights, hand him over to whoever's responsible for him, he says, and began to leave. What, you're throwing me out? Rishi took a deep breath, lowered her head, and slowly began. Prince Dietrich, I have nothing to say to you in regard to your engagement or my banishment. However, Rishi looked Dietrich squarely in the eye. I cannot overlook your speaking ill of Prince Arnold. Dietrich was frozen in surprise before her, unable to form a reply. Prince Arnold is the kindest anyone have ever been to me. He permits me to go out into the town, provide horses for me to ride, and even trains me in swordsmanship from time to time. All things I was not allowed to do when I was your fiancé. Yet you spout this nonsense about saving me? A moment later, Rishi felt herself clinging to Arnold's out of sheer momentum. The two men both turned wide eyes on her. He appeared thin for a swordsman, yet when she wrapped her arms around him, she became aware of how great his physique is and how firm his muscles are. Shoving that thought to the back of her mind, Rishi glared sharply at Dietrich. I'll prove just how wonderful a husband Prince Arnold can be, she said, and of course she could only maintain this position for a few seconds. She knew that she would end up apologizing to Arnold on the carriage ride home later, and she did exactly that. An awkward atmosphere hung in the carriage, and every time Rishi gave it a thought again, all the more did she wish for the floor to swallow her whole. Not only were her cheeks red, the heat reached all the way up to her ears. Suddenly remembering how surprised Arnold had been when she pressed herself against him, she wanted to bury her face in her hands. Arnold sighed as Rishi continued to apologize. I have no intention of limiting your activities in any way. You're free to meet with whomever you wish to meet and speak with whomever you wish to speak. Normally, Rishi would have not been granted such freedom. Dietrich's conduct was normal. Her mother's actions to restrain her were correct. It was Arnold's behavior that was strange. This was not the typical way a noble ladies or royal wives were treated, and maybe that's why Rishi was determined to prove Dietrich wrong. Arnold gave her a weary smile as he said, the man spoke nothing but truth. You're the one being naive. More importantly, if he's going to be staying in the capital, then you should make him atone for all the absurd crime he pinned on you. I'm much more upset about him speaking ill of you than anything he's done to me. Rishi said, nothing a person like him says could ever mean anything to me. He can fuss all he likes, but Arnold lowered his voice. I won't allow him to belittle you. Rishi's heart started dancing again. He was so considerate of her. Just what about him was cruel or brutal? Then Arnold says, I was surprised by what you said though. Rishi was startled when Arnold brought them back on the topic. It's rare for you to act that way, he says. I'm very sorry for grabbing you, Your Highness. Rishi apologizes again. That's not what I meant, he said, frowning for some reason. He tilted his head to the side. You seem more frank with him than you are with other people, Arnold noticed, and Rishi was aware of her tendency to get carried away when talking to Dietrich. I'm used to scolding Prince Dietrich. We're childhood friends as well, after all. Arnold stared at her with his elbow on the window frame. Then he patted the seat next to him. Rishi wasn't sure why he wanted her to sit beside him, but either way she got up and sat down next to him. She raised her head and he returned her gaze, asking her, You won't scold me? This was the point where I was left speechless. Rishi, though, stared back at him in surprise, not clearly understanding his point. Still confused, Rishi answered his question honestly. I would never scold you, Prince Arnold. With Dietrich, I tend to worry that I'm the only one encouraging him to change his behavior. Arnold reached out while she spoke and tugged her hair behind her ear. His fingers raised her earrings like they did earlier in the theater. But you'd be fine without me, Prince Arnold. He lowered his blue eyes before saying, I'm not so sure about that. Now, I was internally screaming at this little exchange, but Rishi, on the other hand, wasn't certain of how to respond to this. So after a moment, she said, Do you want someone to scold you sometimes? It appeared now this time, Arnold didn't know how to respond either. He hadn't affirmed her guess, but he hadn't agreed. So she tried to think of something to scold him for. She says, You mustn't work so late into the night every night. I could say the same to you, he shot back. Or, please take more time to rest and relax. She gives him another reason and he says, again, same to you. Mixing in a bit of humor with her genuine beliefs, Rishi said next, Then what about if you're suspicious of someone, please inform me. You're going to have to do better than that with your leading questions, he says, voice silently husky. He'd seen through her immediately. It was a gut feeling. I had no evidence to support it yet, she said. Is that gut feeling why you were so on edge around Gathail? He asked directly, while Rishi thought that she was being discreet about it. He noticed even the most trivial things about her. But the reason Rishi was suspicious of Gathail was that because she knew the future, and she couldn't very well tell him that. It wasn't anything about Sir Gathail specifically. I just thought that the security situation today wasn't very like you, Your Highness. She too clearly told him about the reason for her doubts, as she was worried about whether or not he was preparing for the war. His blue eyes were like the ocean. She felt like she would never reach their true depth, no matter how long she stared into them. After a moment, Arnold unexpectedly spoke about Febrania, a country that had recently tried to spread fake currency in Galkin. The scheme had been discovered, leading Princess Harriet to break off her engagement with Febrania's prince. But Arnold pointed out that Febrania had a little reason to add fake currency to Galkin's money, since they didn't trade much with them. He suspected that someone had influenced Febrania's action, possibly to weaken Galkin. Given that a world war had ended just 2 years ago, powerful nations were still making strategic moves, and Arnold believed that a large force was at play. He was also worried about his own father, the Emperor, whose aggressive nature might lead him to react violently if he discovers this plot. So Arnold wanted to strengthen Galkin's military, but had to do secretly to avoid his father's attention. Rishi wondered if Arnold's secrecy was only about military strategy, or if he was planning to overthrow his father like he always did in the future. And she also wanted to investigate Sir Gathail, but she needed a reason to approach him too. At the same time, she was concerned about Sylvia, who had been taken away, and Prince Dietrich, another figure that needed to be dealt in the unfolding situation. Lost in her thoughts, Rishi looked up and found Arnold watching her closely, making her heart race. What is it? She asked. The man mentioned a birthday celebration. He changed the topic, and I found it funny how he wasn't even mentioning Dietrich's name. I doubt that he even remembers it. Then he proceeded to ask if birthdays were normally celebrated, which caused Rishi some confusion, but then Rishi realized that Arnold was unfamiliar with that custom. Do you not celebrate your birthday, Prince Arnold? There's a party every year, but I've never attended. It was like the idea of doing so had never occurred to him. I suppose I wouldn't say they've always celebrated without fail, but at very last, I'd like to celebrate the birthday of the people I'm close to. Rishi says and asked, Would you permit us to celebrate your next birthday? Then she looked up at Arnold and smiled. We'll be married by then. We don't have to have a party. We can just celebrate with few close friends. We'll invite Oliver and Prince Theodore and eat a bunch of tasty food. She was getting excited just by imagining it. You can do as you like, Arnold sighed, but your birthday's coming up first. He reminded her, and though his tone was somewhat irritated, he gently asked, If we're supposed to celebrate, then we'll you'll celebrate however much you want. What do you wish to do? He asked, and Rishi went still for a moment. Not because she couldn't think of what she wanted. The thing is, while I love celebrating other people's birthday, I don't particularly like to think about mine, she explained, and Arnold gave her a puzzled look. In part, it was because that could come for her at any moment once she turned 20. But that wasn't the only reason that she wasn't fond of her own birthday. It was also because her family never really celebrated it. When I was young, I was just so busy studying. My schedule was far too packed to make time for celebration. No matter how brilliant you are, it's all meaningless. Since you were born a girl, your only purpose in life is to support the crown prince. You'll marry someone influential in society. A woman's true happiness is to wed a powerful man and have a child with him, and nothing more. She was telling him how the society worked at that time, massaging her cheeks so she wouldn't make any faces. Then she continues, anyways, I'm not really sure what to do when it comes to my own birthday. I wonder what Prince Arnold think of this. Rishi glanced up at him, still pressing down on her cheeks. Should we not do anything then? He asked, waiting for her answer. Rishi turned her gaze on her shoes and contemplated the matter. Once again, Arnold was being respectful to her wishes. And I can't say this enough, he is a green flag, and I truly believe that he would be the perfect husband material in the fictional world. Rishi only spent a few seconds thinking before slowly shaking her head. I want to celebrate with you, Prince Arnold. It embarrassed her to say so, and she felt like a child. Arnold just said, understood, like this was any other conversation, and then lightly patted her hair. Rishi sighed with relief. This all feels a bit strange. I've never really told anyone about it before. Yeah, you don't really talk about your own feelings, Arnold pointed out. Do I not? She asked. Now that he mentioned it, maybe he was right. It was all because Rishi's looping gave her too many secrets. But she hasn't even realized that she'd never voiced her feelings until Arnold had pointed it out. And that thought made her giggle. What's so funny? He asked. I just thought that you might know me better than I know myself, she replied, but instead of responding, Arnold stroked her hair again. Prince Arnold really is every bit the wonderful husband I told Prince Dietrich he was. But I must do my part as well. She reaffirmed her determination. I must become the best future wife I can be. She was planning out everything until the wedding part came. The wedding. Then Rishi stared up at Arnold next to her. At the wedding, her gaze lingered on Arnold's lips and she gulped. I'll have to kiss him again, she thought, and whipped her head toward the window before her face turned red again. Completely thrown, Rishi spent the rest of the carriage ride back to the palace, considering the greatest challenge she faced in any of her lives up until now. And just so you know, there isn't any marriage scene here in this volume. There are, however, some practice scenes of them that I will tell you about in the next video. Anyways, that was all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to me. Take care of yourself and goodbye.
No, you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you, but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change.